Welcome to the Federal Highway Administration's CMAQ 101 training course. This training is an introduction to the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, also known as CMAQ. It is primarily intended for individuals and agencies that are unfamiliar with the CMAQ program and those who want to learn more about how CMAQ funds state and local transportation projects that reduce emissions. This training will provide an overview of the CMAQ program, including how it is influenced by the Clean Air Act and the broader federal aid highway program. We will review general project eligibilities and the specific project types that are eligible for CMAQ funding. At the end of the training, we will provide a number of resources so you can further understand the program and where to go for more information. This session does not address specific details on the Clean Air Act, National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or the Federal Aid Highway Program, other than how they relate to the CMAQ program. When you complete this training, you will understand the basics of the Federal Aid Highway Program and CMAQ program processes, which types of projects may be eligible for CMAQ funds, and where to go for more information specific about how the CMAQ program is administered in your state or region. Now let's get started. The purpose of the CMAQ program is to fund transportation projects that support the attainment or maintenance of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or NAAQS. The NAAQS are established by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as required by the Clean Air Act. Additional information about the National Ambient Air Quality Standards is available on the EPA website at www.epa.gov and searching for NAAQS. The U.S. Department of Transportation is committed to improving air quality by reducing pollution from the transportation sector and reducing congestion, which contribute to air pollution as well as costs to road users in terms of lost productive time, respectively. The CMAQ program contributes to these goals by supporting projects that reduce emissions of ozone, carbon monoxide, and particulate matter, or PM, and applicable precursor pollutants. Ozone, for example, is photochemically produced in the atmosphere when certain precursor pollutants, such as VOC and NOx, are mixed together in the presence of sunlight. Particulate matter is regulated in two categories, PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM 10 particles are 10 micrometers and below in size and pose a health concern due to the potential to accumulate in the human respiratory system. PM 2.5 particles are 2.5 micrometers and below in size and are especially concerning due to their ability to penetrate deeper into the lungs than larger particles. The CMAQ program is authorized in Section 149 of Title 23 of the United States Code. Title 23 U.S. Code authorizes the Federal Aid Highway Program and related programs and laws. Chapter 53, Title 49 U.S. Code authorizes the transfer of CMAQ funds to the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, for award, including for use as operating assistance under certain criteria. Like all federal aid highway programs, CMAQ is a formula program that makes funding available to states and regions to fund transportation system improvements. It is not a grant program. The Clean Air Act established national programs to limit air pollution, including setting requirements to create the National Ambient Air Quality Standards and establishing a process for designating an area as non-attainment. A non-attainment area is a region that does not meet NAAQS for criteria pollutant. When a non-attainment area meets the air quality standards, it can be redesignated as a maintenance area upon meeting certain criteria. The Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 created a more rigorous link between tailpipe emissions from transportation and air quality planning. The primary focus of the CMAQ program is to provide funding support for eligible transportation projects that reduce emissions in the non-attainment and maintenance areas. The CMAQ program was first authorized under the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, or ICE-T, in 1991 to help states and regions meet the requirements established under the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments. The program has been reauthorized in all subsequent transportation legislation passed since then. CMAQ is one of 7 federal aid highway programs, such as those for highway safety and surface transportation. The Federal Aid Highway Program provides funding to state DOTs and metropolitan planning organizations, known as MPOs, which make decisions about how to spend federal transportation funds through a continuous, comprehensive, and cooperative transportation planning process, which includes local public input and cooperation and consultation with relevant stakeholders. All eligible CMAQ-funded projects must be included in the MPO's Metropolitan Transportation Plans and Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP where applicable, and the State DOT's Statewide Transportation Improvement Programs, or STIPs. Like all federal aid highway program funded projects, projects seeking to use CMAQ funds must comply with applicable environmental laws such as the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, financial management, materials and equipment sourcing, administrative, and other requirements specified in federal regulations. While there is no federal role in project selection, selected projects have to meet program eligibility requirements and are subject to federal oversight. The state DOTs and MPOs select which projects to pursue. This is a very simplified version of how the federal aid funding process works. The Federal Aid Highway Program funding process starts with authorization by Congress and apportionment of funding from the Federal Highway Administration to the states based on formulas or processes established by the legislation. The CMAQ apportionment process can be found in Section 104(b)(4) of Title 23 of the U.S. Code. Each state DOT decides how its allotment of federal funding will be distributed within the state. Projects must be proposed, selected, and programmed through the statewide or metropolitan planning and programming process, which varies by state and region. Selected projects are incorporated into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and TIP where applicable, and STIP. All federal aid highway projects must be included in the approved STIP to be eligible for funding. Upon approval of the STIP, projects may be selected by the state DOT for funding. CMAQ funds can be used to support environmental review activities required under NEPA through to completion of construction. Other funding sources are available to support earlier stages in the process, such as planning. The federal share of funding is provided to the state DOT through reimbursements for completed portions of the project. The federal portion is typically 80%. The project selection process for the use of CMAQ funds is conducted by the state DOTs and MPOs through their respective established planning processes. The project selection process should also involve state and local air quality agencies. While the project selection process varies among states and MPOs, the process should be transparent, in writing, and publicly available at all levels. The Federal Highway Administration does not have a role in project selection. However, the agency encourages a competitive approach to evaluating and selecting projects. All projects must meet the basic eligibility criteria of the CMAQ program. All CMAQ projects must meet the following 3 criteria. It must be a transportation project. It must generate emission reduction in one or more of the following pollutants: NOx, VOCs, carbon monoxide, PM 2.5, or PM 10, and it must be located in or substantially benefit a non-attainment or maintenance area. For states without any non-attainment and maintenance areas, CMAQ funds can be used to support projects anywhere in the state that meet CMAQ or Surface Transportation Program eligibility requirements. States that have PM 2.5 non-attainment or maintenance areas are required to invest a portion of their CMAQ funding in projects that reduce PM 2.5 emissions. Since 1992, the CMAQ program has provided more than $32 billion in funding to support more than 38,000 projects across all 50 states plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. These projects are assigned to 17 categories, offering support for capital and some operating assistance. The 17 categories of eligible project and program categories for CMAQ projects are diesel engine retrofits, idle reduction, congestion reduction and traffic flow improvements, freight or intermodal, transportation control measures, transit improvements, bicycle and pedestrian facilities and programs, travel demand management, public education and outreach activities, transportation management associations, carpooling and vanpooling, car sharing, extreme low temperature cold start programs, training, inspection and maintenance programs, innovative projects, and alternative fuels and vehicles. Today's training will explore 6 of the most commonly used categories: diesel retrofits, congestion reduction and traffic flow improvements, transit improvements, bicycle and pedestrian facilities and programs, travel demand management, and alternative fuels and vehicles. Please see the CMAQ program guidance for additional information about all of these project and program categories. Diesel retrofit projects reduce emissions by updating a diesel engine to emit less pollution, specifically particulate matter. More than 13 million diesel engines are operating in the United States. The vast majority of these may be eligible for retrofits via CMAQ funding because they are older engines that do not include newer pollution reduction technologies. Eligible projects for diesel retrofits include those that replace a vehicle or engine, rebuild or recondition an engine, provide after-treatment or other pollution-reducing technologies, as well as programs that retire heavy-duty vehicles. CMAQ funds may also be used to retrofit or replace diesel school buses. CMAQ will not cover projects for the purchase of fuel as a standalone project. It can only be used for fuel purchasing when combined with the installation of emission control equipment or retrofitting non-road engines. Retrofit projects are applicable to on-road vehicles and non-road construction equipment. If the project is for non-road construction equipment, it is limited to those used on Title 23 projects located in PM or ozone non-attainment or maintenance areas. The replacement of either an engine or full vehicle should include verification that the replaced engine is no longer contributing emissions in the non-attainment or maintenance area. Applicable projects also include freight and intermodal activities that reduce pollution from rail and marine highway vessel diesel engines. The projects may also reduce emissions through modification or additions to infrastructure that result in a shift from trucks to other modes. Traffic flow improvement projects are those that reduce congestion and improve the efficiency of the facility, which ultimately reduces emissions. Traditional traffic flow improvement projects include roundabouts, high occupancy vehicle or HOV lanes, left turn or other managed lanes. Intelligent Transportation Systems projects, also known as ITS, are those that use technology to mitigate congestion. These include real-time traveler information programs, as illustrated by the variable message board in the photo, improved traffic signal timing, and systems to manage freeways, transit, traffic incidents, or work zones. Vehicle-to-infrastructure, or V2I systems, are a new technology that collects and shares data between vehicles and roadside infrastructure to improve travel times and congestion. Eligible ITS and transit projects that support V2I applications include equipment and installation costs, as well as limited operating assistance. Congestion pricing programs are also eligible for CMAQ funds. These programs adjust the cost of infrastructure use by time of day or service demand. Prices are higher at peak demand times and lower during off-peak. Projects include price-managed lanes, priced highways, priced zones, priced road networks, and priced parking. Eligible transit projects will result in either an increase in transit ridership, potential congestion reduction, or both. Eligible facility projects include new lines, stations, terminals, transfer facilities, or facility improvements for bicycle, pedestrian, and access under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Projects for routine maintenance or rehabilitation of existing facilities are not generally eligible because they do not contribute to emission reductions. A facility rehabilitation project could be eligible only if the significant majority of it results in increased ridership. Projects for the purchase of new vehicles and equipment resulting in an emissions reduction are eligible for CMAQ funds. These include new buses, rail cars, and vans to expand or replace fleet. Routine preventative maintenance on vehicles is not eligible. Fuel is only eligible as part of projects providing operating assistance for new or expanded service. Operating assistance to introduce new service or expand existing transit is eligible regardless of urbanized area size. Transit fare subsidies are also eligible as part of a coordinated effort to prevent NACs from being exceeded. The subsidy must be available to the general public and may only be offered at times of elevated pollution when the area is most likely to exceed the NAAQS. Bicycle and pedestrian projects reduce emissions and congestion by shifting trips from vehicles to cleaner alternative modes of transportation. Eligible bicycle and pedestrian projects include multi-use paths, bike lanes, and bike racks that are primarily used for transportation rather than recreation purposes and can be shown to reduce vehicle miles traveled. Funds can also be used for outreach related to safe bicycling and establishing one full-time state bicycle and pedestrian coordinator position to promote and facilitate non-motorized transportation modes. The capital costs for bike share programs are also eligible for CMAQ funding. These include the bicycles, bike sharing docks, and related equipment. However, CMAQ funds cannot be used for the operational costs of bike share systems or other bike and pedestrian programs. The goal of travel demand management, often referred to as TDM, is to optimize performance of local and regional transportation networks. TDM includes a set of activities that deliver real-time network information to allow for better traveler decisions regarding modes, times, routes, and locations. Eligible projects can be divided into congestion reduction and trip reduction categories. It is important to note eligible projects are explicitly aimed at reducing single-occupancy vehicle travel and associated emissions. Eligible congestion reduction TDM projects include traffic calming measures, variable road and parking pricing, which adjusts pricing to reflect demand, fringe parking, which is located at the periphery of a central business area and served by public transit, as well as traveler information services. Eligible projects within the trip reduction category of TDM include shuttle services, guaranteed ride-home programs, car and van pool programs, telecommuting or work-from-home options, and car sharing. The funding can be used for capital expenses and operating assistance for new or expanded TDM programs. This includes marketing and outreach to increase the use of TDM measures. However, CMAQ funds cannot be used for the purchase of computers or office equipment for teleworking programs. Alternative fuels burn cleaner than conventional fuels, which reduces emissions and improves air quality. CMAQ program support for alternative fuels can be divided into two categories: vehicles and infrastructure. Starting with alternative fuels, eligible projects include covering the cost difference of purchasing alternative fuel vehicles instead of conventional fuel vehicles for publicly owned or private non-transit fleets, and converting existing vehicles to alternative fuel. Alternative fuel vehicles should be fueled by one of the alternative fuels identified in the 1992 Energy Policy Act, or biodiesel. While hybrid vehicles are not defined as alternative fuel, they may be eligible if they can demonstrate a lower emissions rate than their non-hybrid counterparts. A project converting diesel engines and vehicles to alternative fuels would be processed as diesel retrofits rather than under this category. As noted on the previous slide, the CMAQ program also supports projects that provide alternative fuel infrastructure to encourage the use of alternative fuel vehicles, such as fueling facilities. Eligible projects in this category include facilities that provide at least one alternative fuel listed in the 1992 Energy Policy Act, biodiesel, or an electric vehicle charging station. The funds can only be used for public facilities as long as they do not compete with an existing privately owned station. Public-private partnerships can be funded to support converting or expanding a private fueling facility to include alternative fuels. Fueling stations providing electric vehicle charging or natural gas fueling can be located anywhere in the state and do not have to be located within a non-attainment or maintenance area. These refueling facilities may be located within the interstate right-of-way as long as the services are provided at no charge and are in compliance with Title 23 of the U.S. Code, Section 111. The standalone purchase of fuel is not an eligible expense. Now that we have covered the categories of generally eligible projects, it is time to discuss some reporting requirements and data management systems. State DOTs submit annual reports to the Federal Highway Administration detailing the expenditure of CMAQ funds. The reports should list projects funded in the previous federal fiscal year, including the amount of CMAQ funds that were obligated or deobligated for each project. The report should include a complete description of the project as well as a quantitative analysis of the emissions impact to the extent possible. The report information enables the Federal Highway Administration to maintain a cumulative database of projects. The cumulative database of information on CMAQ projects dates back to 1992 and is publicly available in an online database. The CMAQ Public Access System provides information on projects such as project name, location, cost data, and emission reductions in a searchable website. You can find the database by going to the CMAQ program website at www.fhwa.dot.gov/environment/air_quality/CMAQ and selecting CMAQ Public Access System from the menu of options on the right side of the page. More detailed information about everything covered in this training and the CMAQ program can be found in the CMAQ program guidance. The guidance is updated with each legislative reauthorization and covers the apportionment process, eligible geographic areas, project eligibility, selection process, and administration. For the most recent guidance document, please visit the Policy and Guidance page on the CMAQ website. This training has provided you with a basic understanding of the federal aid and CMAQ processes. You should be more familiar with common types of projects eligible for CMAQ funds and where to go for additional information. The CMAQ website provides further information on the subjects covered in this training. Please visit at www.fhwa.dot.gov/environment/air_quality/CMAQ. The Federal Highway Administration Division offices can provide further detailed information about the specific processes for CMAQ project selection and contacts for your state. We encourage you to reach out to your division office with any questions you have and to learn more about the processes specific to your state or metropolitan area. Division office information can be found at www.fhwa.dot.gov/about/field.cfm. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. We appreciate your interest in the CMAQ program.